Well, welcome back to another week's analysis behind the news. Well, this week, one of the things that's happened, at least it's come out, and with a major push at the end of last week, is the selling by the Fed of tons of gold on the market. Now, many of us for years have felt that there has been a manipulation of the gold market for decades, out of London or New York or wherever it happens to be, but in this case, the manipulation is coming straight from the Federal Reserve. Now, the excuse for this is that if they sell off all this gold, it will help stabilize the dollar and rise the price of dollar in vis-a-vis relationship to gold itself. So as the moment that we are bringing this or recording this for you, gold is at $1,400 per ounce. It'll probably go a little lower. The thing is that is $150 an ounce drop in basically a week. So it's kind of interesting to look at the reasoning behind all of this. The reasoning that they're promoting out into the world and through the mass media is that this is being done so that it will stabilize the dollar against gold and make the dollar a better currency in the world. So people will want to stay in the dollar, so to speak. Well, that makes sense to an extent, but let's look at some of the other ramifications of such a move. First of all, if the gold is supposed to, what we're told, back the dollar, which of course those of you who are Ron Paulus and everything else, you know that's not true. Any sound economist knows that's not true, but at least that's the myth, that this gold we have somehow backs the dollar, but really it's the good faith of the American people and government that does it. Nonetheless, the myth is that gold backs the dollar. Well, if we're selling off the gold to help the dollar, what happens to the backing to the dollar? The other thing is this. Let's talk about just simply buying and selling. Just divorce from your mind the idea that it's gold. Wouldn't matter what commodity, wouldn't matter what appliance or anything, a car or anything else. If you are going to buy tons or a large amount of something that you know by your purchase will drive the price down to after your purchase it's worth less, does that make sense to you? Unless somebody who's doing the buying knows something about the future and the futures market in this case. But the thing is that if you take a look at the ripple effect of all of this out there, it doesn't matter who the Fed is actually selling the gold to, because on the other end of this ripple, almost the same amount of tonnage of gold is being purchased by the Chinese. So this is being done because they don't want the dollars anymore. They want out of the dollar, so the nice United States government is putting more gold out on the market. We might as well buy it up. That way, no matter what kind of currency there is in the world, we have the gold. And those that have the gold rule. That's the way it is. Follow the flow of gold. You can see the flow of power. Really, that is an ancient reality. At the same time, we know that Germany is calling its gold back from New York in the Rockefeller banks on Wall Street. They want their gold. You know, a lot of people don't realize that foreign gold has been stored inside this country for a long, long time. And it was always a joke that if gold transferred from one country to the other, it just rolled from one cage to another cage in the same bank. That's a common occurrence. Texas wants its gold. So there's a lot going on now in the gold market, which is driving the price down, which makes no sense if you're a buyer. Because if I buy here and then it comes down here, I've lost a lot of money, unless I know something. Unless something is there in the future, where I know I'm going to hedge my bet or I'm going to make a profit, one way or the other. So it's something to look at. But again, the Fed does this and China does that. if you don't believe there isn't a connection, then you haven't been paying attention to who runs the world around here. At the same time that they're doing this, they're running articles like gold is losing some allure as a safe haven. Now, those articles are designed for you and me to read. They're not designed for the central bank to read, or Germany to read, or the Texas government to read, or the Chinese to read. These are to get you and me to sell our gold too, further driving the price down. And they're not a hedge, according to this article, like they used to be. Baloney. It is a hedge. It is a safe haven. It doesn't matter what happens to the price of gold. At least it's a tangible commodity. At the same time that they're doing things like this, most of you know that when they came down on the Cypriot bank holders, bank account holders in Cyprus, that certain individuals, now it has been shown, got their money out before any of this was announced. And even after it was announced, the foreign branches of some of these banks remained open even during the freeze of the Cypriot banks, so that individuals like Russians could get their money out of these banks before this rule came down, confiscating their, at least a sizable percentage of their holdings. Now what we're seeing is little things being floated around that maybe we're going to have to do the same with Italy and Spain. I've seen as much as 17% being floated around about confiscating Italian bank accounts. So there you have it. Don't need gold, all you pesky people that are worried about what's happening down the road and trying to save your banking accounts through the purchase of gold. Don't do that. That's just for the central banks, sure. The other thing that we're seeing too is that a lot of offshore accounts are now being made public to the governments from that these people who hold the accounts, where they come from. Doesn't matter, it means all over the world. So for those of you who have your money in Luxembourg, Cancun, places like that, suddenly there's data leaks to these governments that where you reside, telling them how much money you've got in these accounts. So there's this whole movement worldwide to subjugate more and more people through this data, through the sale and purchase of gold, and so on and so forth, so that at some time in the future, if things do collapse, which is still a ways off, I know there are always people out there, it's tomorrow, tomorrow. I was just discussing in a meeting we were having on the issues. Every week on Monday, we have a number of us come together and discuss what's going on around the world and in the United States, because all of us kind of notice different things and we kind of see a broad view of what's going on. And in that meeting, we discussed some very interesting things. One of them was the fact of one pundit, a financial pundit, who's been wrong for 35 years and people still subscribe to his stuff. At any rate, moving on very rapidly, and that is that Rubio is trying to tell people that the new bill he's behind for immigration in the Senate is not an amnesty bill. It's just granting immediate legal status. I don't know about you, but that sounds an awful lot like a definition of amnesty. Oh yeah, they go through a litany of time periods, wait periods, fines, so on and so forth, but they're not legal. And so this will establish a legal status for them, which will not be called amnesty. In my head, it's amnesty. At any rate, I think we'll leave it at that, except for one thing to kind of give you an update. I mentioned that the Chinese are moving in to start buying Hollywood. Well, this new movie, Django Unlimited, or Unchained rather, that's it was going to be shown in China, and the Chinese government clamped down on it and ordered some things cut out of the film before it could be shown to the Chinese, about 1,000 outlets. So of course Hollywood is complying. They're censoring their movie and sending in a censored version into China that's compatible with the wishes of the Communist government of China. Chinese have an awful lot of sway over what happens around the world. When they start, the Russians and they start grabbing all the oil besides what's in the United States, I mentioned before that they're going to start running the oil fields in Afghanistan. When they start having the iron ore and everything else from around the world captured by the Chinese, then our manufacturers are going to be listening to their advice in order to be able to make their widgets. It's what's going on around the world in economics. Again, where the gold is flowing, flows the power. Don't ever lose don't ever lose that fact from your mind. Until next week, we'll see you then.